have some
Yeah,
serious
fucking
tongue
boom
issues.
boom. I hear dead people.
What are you doing? Who won fantasy football, by the way? I think it was me, right?
Well, I'm Jamie. I'm just going to announce that I've won the fantasy football. Evening, Chelsea fans. Welcome back to Chelsea Chat with me, Moose, and JB. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification. And comment below. We'd like to hear your thoughts around this week's topic, which is doing the player rating cards and a review of our season. So we're going to be going through each one of the squad, giving them, obviously, with what's going on in the world, a non-marked down player grade. And we're going to go through, giving a bit more context around how we thought each player played, giving our players of the season into sort of the areas of player of the season, young player of the season, clubman, and most improved. And then we'll go through some of the transfer tracker pieces, some interesting bits happening there. But going through that, I mean, we've spoken around on the podcast a number of times, Jamie. The season we've had was unexpected, to say the least. I mean, if you told me a year ago Lampard was going to come in and be such a success, I wouldn't have believed you, to be honest. I thought we would have got 7th, 8th, with an aim of 6th at the beginning of the season, just because I thought it was going to be a massive building season. And to see Lampard come in and have a building season but still get top 4, unreal. But I think what we've spoken around a number of times on the podcast is the up and downs of the season. Some players have had absolutely outstanding games, and some players have been god awful. And I think we'll probably start with the god awful, to be honest. So we've gone through a number of times, but let's talk through a grading of the players, just to see where we think our weak spots are, where we think we can improve, and who's been outstanding. So if we kick off from back to front, so if we start with the goalkeeper, Kepa. Not that we've mentioned him at all already.
Who's he?
An ex-Chelsea player.
I think he's been an ex-Chelsea player the whole season, hasn't he? No one been in goal whatsoever. He's been absolutely awful this season. It's a shame because, you know, he's young and he seemed to have a bit of promise. He made a few good saves last season, which made you think, yeah, you know, he's got something there. But this year it's been far too many errors compared to anything good. You know, it seems to be a case of shots just kind of go through him. Number of times when the ball's been directly at him or just above him, he can't get to it. He's got no presence in the box when you have corners coming in. He's just not there. And I don't know if it's a case of actual talent or if it's a case of just his confidence is shot. Probably a mixture of the two. But he hasn't performed. Hence, you know, we spent £70 million on him and we're still looking for a new goalkeeper. So that really kind of sums it up. So I think he's going to get a big fat F for this season, and it's probably going to be the worst grade we give out to anyone, to be honest, which is unfortunate being the goalkeeper, but it's just how it's been this year.
Yeah, I mean, if I look at Kepa, he's been a topic of the podcast for many weeks. He's just not clicked. I think it's the one position in a team that is fundamentally based on form and confidence, and he's had neither of those this season, and that's sort of really why we're giving him the F. I mean, the issue is, I think as Chelsea fans for so many years we've had such pedigree in goal. I mean, even from when I started supporting Chelsea, the likes of Kudicini, then moving on to even better in Petr Cech, then Thibaut Courtois. We've had sort of a goalkeeping dynasty that many clubs look at and sort of very envious, and he's not been able to live up to that.
Yeah, I mean, when was the last time that we conceded 50 goals in a season? I don't blame him solely for that. It's not just him. I mean, it was a perfect storm of having a defence which has just kind of been lacking this season, on top of having a ghost in goal. It's just not helped either way. So, yeah. I mean, it's not completely his fault, but at the same time, there were so many things that he could have done better, and he could have been a lot stronger in his performances to help us not concede 50 goals. But that's how it went down.
And for a player of his, obviously, his cost, sort of obviously as football fans, you go on their transfer, most expensive goalkeeper in the world. It's been pretty poor. I think I was looking at some of the stats that I'd seen. He didn't even rate in the top 100 of goalkeepers in the English Football League, which probably says it all. He's young, but I just think he's been branded with the flop status by every fan, really. And I think it went downhill. There's a difference between confidence and arrogance, and he's got a lot of arrogance. And I don't think he's going to regain that confidence that he's had. I think it all went downhill since he didn't come off the pitch at the FA Cup. People have just not been able to take him seriously since then. And I think it's very warranted. He is probably going to be our lowest rated player this season in the F status. Onwards and upwards. Willie Calabero. I don't think Willie even thought this, that coming into a team after being at the City for so long, he didn't think he was going to be relied on as much. If I was a player, I didn't think I would be relied on as much if we're buying the most expensive goalkeeper in the world. And he's just always been that great backup keeper. He just sort of comes in. I'm going to give him a C because for a player that shouldn't have had to be in the sticks at 38 years old, still being able to deliver good performances, he's never going to be a world-class keeper, nor would I expect him to be. But he's come in and delivered performances for us. Moving on to defence, because I think goalkeepers are very difficult to rate too much because I've only got a little bit in which you can rate them by. But I think we've had a bang average class of goalkeepers, to say the least. Rudiger.
Yeah, I mean, he was, when he was injured at the beginning of the season, and I was like, we were conceding a lot of goals. And I remember thinking, like, we've got a good few young defenders in there. They're making mistakes. They're young, but we're having to play like two young defenders next to each other all the time. I was just waiting for Rudiger to come back just to sort them out, because I thought, he's a bit more experienced. He can bring that control into it and kind of master that back four and control it and make them do what they need to do. It never happens. Like even at the beginning of the season, he probably had a couple of good individual performances, but he just didn't take on that challenge of being that leader at the back, which I really felt that he was going to. And I do feel let down by him this year. I think he's a good player to have around the squad. I still think he's probably, out of the four centre backs, I still think he would be the one I would choose to leave. Yeah, he really disappointed me this season. So I'm giving him a D for this year.
So if we move on we'll go to left back now. We'll start with Alonso. Once again, a player who's had a very up and down season. Not an amazing season. He's not in any great height. He's got a few goals for us. Defensively, I'm just going to give it that. But didn't have a bad season by any stretch of the imagination. Was caught defensively many times, and that's one of our key challenges in that left back position, and why we're constantly linked to a number of different left backs to go and replace him. He's not a player I'd like to get rid of because I think he can come on and change a game. But I would give him a C this season. He's had an average season. He's not been great like we've seen in the Conte season or stuff like that, but he's done a job and he's done it half decently. So I think I'm happy with a C for Alonso. If we go back to centre back, Christensen.
For me, I think he is good if you're playing a team who keep the ball on the floor. the second you've got a big centre half who's, bullying them about, he can't cope with it. And the perfect 2 games to show that is the City game where, he played very well coming up against Bernardo Silva as a false 9. And then the very next game, we lose to West Ham with Antonio just bullying him for 90 minutes, and he just couldn't cope. When you're in the Premier League, you have to know how to cope with those kind of players, and he is not physically strong enough. And that's what lets him down. Other than that, he's a beautiful player on the ball. If, someone's dribbling at him, he does very well to stop that. But anything in the air, and he can't deal with it. So again, kind of it balances out for me to around a C, but I don't think, you can rely on him going forward as, one of our main centre-backs. He's a good squad option to have. But yeah, so I'm giving him a C.
I'm going to move on to our club captain, Dave. 30 years old now. He's quite impressive. So he's been with us since, I think, 2012, so 8 years now. I think he's been Mr. Consistent for me. Every season delivers what we expect defensively.
Especially this year, I think no one expected him to keep his place, really, because everyone was looking. Emerson finished last season well, so everyone was thinking Emerson was going to be our left back. Reece James coming back, everyone was thinking, right, new era, right back. Dave's losing his legs a little bit, but he has just shown that he is so important to our team.
Some great interviews with him on the Chelsea website at the moment. Definitely recommend people having a look at that. But I don't think there's other players or defensive players for that matter that can play left back, right back, centre back throughout the season and deliver to the standards that he has. That is sort of the epitome of what you expect from a defender, a player and a captain. He may be best at right back, but we've got someone else coming in. So we'll play you at centre back, we'll play you at left back this game because we need you to fill in. No complaints, and still delivers that 100%. So I'm going to give him a B because I think he's had an amazing season. Hasn't had sort of the outstanding season we've seen from some players, but he's always getting a B. So what are your thoughts on Emerson? I think you mentioned him a while ago. Had a great last season, not so much this season. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, he looked like he was going to be a good left back for us. The end of last season, Europa League final, had a good game. Started this season absolutely poor. I know he picked up an injury even before that, and then when he came in after that, just nowhere near the same. In all honesty, it kind of has felt most of the season like he's going to be on his way anyway, and we've been looking for a left back for a long time. So he didn't really offer anything, I don't think. I can't think of one occasion where he's really offered us anything. And whilst I don't think he's been as harmful to us as Kepa has been, I think he's been pretty bad when he has played. So I'm going to give him an E. I don't really know what else to say about him, really. He hasn't done a hell of a lot.
Bang average, I think, is the
literally, yeah. Well, less than average, which is why he's got an E.
Moving onwards and upwards, Reece James coming into the squad after a number of good seasons in the Championship with the likes of Wigan. For me, I was hoping he was going to be good. I wasn't expecting him to be as good as he was this season. He's had an outstanding season. It's lovely to see youth coming through, but to push Dave out of the right back position and own that yourself, and he's had some outstanding performances in right back. It also offers us something completely different. The crosses he brings in his attacking approach, absolutely amazing. Inch perfect. So he's offering us something else to the game. Defensively great, looks amazing. I think sort of given another season, we'll be talking around the same sort of stuff we're talking around Trent Alexander. So in my eyes, I'm going to give him a B+ because he was outstanding. I think we've had some better players because he's had some poor games for us as well. But that's nothing against sort of him as a player. That's just a youth player coming into a big squad and learning the world of the Premier League. But other than that, great season for him. Jamie Zuma, another centre-back for us.
Yeah. Again, I think I had a lot of high hopes for Zuma coming back. He played well in a couple of his loan spells. He would be probably the best out of a bad bunch in terms of the defence this season. There was a couple of occasions where he made some ridiculous tackles. Thinking specifically that Crystal Palace one, which saved us the 3 points. He's done okay. Whereas the others have done slightly less than okay. He's done okay. And I think, hopefully we'll be getting a new centre-back in over the summer. And I would imagine that person should be playing alongside Zuma. I don't know how Lampard views the defenders at the moment. Obviously, we'll be coming on to Tomori in a minute, but Zuma will be the one that will be the first choice, I think, next season with another defender that we bring in. I was happy enough with Zuma. Slightly under my expectations at the beginning of the season, but when you're comparing him to the other defenders in the team this year, I think he's got to be slightly above that. So I'm going to give him a C+.
Tomori, for me, it was just one of those unknowns. I wouldn't have put him into the starting lineup at all this season, if I was going to be honest. He's sort of an unknown coming in. Lampard knew him from Derby, and he had so much promise. He's fallen foul of many of the other players that we've had in centre back that probably had a mistake in him at some point. Immature is another area, but if I'm going to go on pure performance, absolutely outstanding. And I think sort of if I look back to the game we had near the start of the season against Wolves, and he scored that absolutely outstanding goal, you can tell there's a talent there as well. His pace is frightening. I think he just needs one or two other more seasons of just getting sort of match sort of preparedness, understanding the game a bit more. And I think we've got an outstanding centre back in him. So I'm going to give him a C because I thought he was great. So we've covered off defenders now. Going to move forward to midfield. So I'm going to start off on the point of youth. Billy Gilmore, great start to his Chelsea career.
I remember the first appearance he had against Sheffield United. He was brought on. We were 2-0 or 2-1 up, and things kind of collapsed in that game, and we ended up drawing 2-2. People were looking like, why on earth has Lampard brought in an 18-year-old who's probably way out of his depth, and into such a pivotal kind of moment in a game like that. But that shows how much trust he had in him. Granted, he didn't make another appearance for a little while, but when he did, and he came in, for that Liverpool game, good God, he was sensational. Like, someone's played well if he's getting praise off Roy Keane on Sky, because, it takes a lot to impress Roy Keane. And I think Roy Keane said something along the lines of, he had the game on in the background, and every time he looked up, he just saw some small kid in the middle, just doing absolute bits. Premier League against Everton the next game, and did the same thing. He was absolutely brilliant. And it also shows how good he was, the fact that Lampard was picking him over Jorginho after the lockdown. He didn't have his best games. He had a couple of stinkers, like the Leicester FA Cup game was one of them. He got pulled off at half-time. It just shows how much confidence Lampard has in him, and he's definitely going to be a top player in the future. And at his age, I believe he's 18. He doesn't look it, but I think he is. And to do that well straight away and make such an impact, I have to give him a B, I think, for performances he did put in this year.
Kante, a player who, every other season probably would have gone automatically into an A rating, just because he competes at a different level to everyone else. The only reason he's not going to get this season is because his injuries, and that's nothing on him. I think sort of I'd love to have given him an A simply because we needed his A game this season. But unfortunately, a few injuries there. He obviously didn't make a massive impact on some of the games, but for me, always improves Chelsea when he plays in the season. I think it's the first time he's not won anything as a Chelsea player. And that pretty much is him driving towards those trophies. So full credit to him there. But on his performances this season, been outstanding, but probably not as much as I'd like to have seen him on a pitch. So I'm going to even be minor. So Jorginho, interesting. I think sort of this season he was able to recreate himself, because I think everyone sort of saw him as the coach's son last season. Sarri was just sort of, he was the golden child, could do no wrong, was picked above Kante in many positions. Fans disliked that sort of blind faith that Sarri gave him, and he didn't really deliver against that. I feel he had an opportunity to go against that, and he gave us some outstanding performances at the start of the season. I'm thinking around the amazing assist that he did to sort of Abraham in the game there, but it didn't set the world on fire still. And I think we have got such a bloated midfield. We've got so many players that could step ahead of him and play a different game, play a game that I think probably could improve that. And that's, to your point earlier, why Gilmour was being picked ahead of him. He had next to no games, if at all possible, after the COVID sort of piece there. I'd like to see him probably leave, because I think we've got so many other players that should probably get a game ahead of him. And I'd like to recoup some of his cost. But I don't see any club really coming in for him now that Juve have lost Sarri. I think performance-wise, I'll give him a C-, because he didn't have a bad season, didn't have an outstanding season, and I saw so many other better players than him. And move on to a more positive player. We were talking probably last season, and again, I'm not too sure how well Kovacic is going to sort of fit into the middle of the park. What does he offer above and beyond a Kante, a number of other players in the middle? And by God, did he offer a lot more this season?
He was superb, wasn't he? His ability to beat the press was second to none. Teams learn really quickly that if they just press Jorginho, then it's going to put us in trouble. And especially beginning of the season, when we had Jorginho and Kovacic playing in the double pivot in the middle, they quickly found afterwards that, well, Jorginho just pop it off to Kovacic, and he knows how to beat the press. He can stop teams from kind of pestering us so much that we give the ball away. He'll just turn and beat his man and just drive the ball forward in a Loftus-Cheek kind of way, but obviously just not with the same kind of power. The only downside to Kovacic is the end product after that. He can bring the ball forward well and carry it, but what he does after that is not the best, which is the only thing that really holds him back. But I think it was crucial this season that we had someone that was able to do that, and in so many occasions he got us out of trouble. I think he had an absolutely superb season, one of, if not the best player for us. We'll discuss that part later. But I'm giving him an A. He has been great for us this season.
Moving on, Loftus-Cheek came back from injury. Really sad to see last season. Didn't get to play the Europa League final. Had an outstanding number of games before his injury, and then was the second half of our season reintegrated back into the squad following his sort of recuperation. Took a while to get into the swing of things, but you can see such a great player in Loftus-Cheek coming through. So for me, had a great few games, but obviously sort of a few others that just were more lacking match fitness. And I think he'll probably have a much bigger part to play next season. So I'll give him a C. Barkley.
He's an interesting one because he has spells. He's not consistent, but he has spells. He'll have a few games where you think, finally, we're getting the Barkley that we hoped he would be. And then he'll have another couple of games where he's just not quite there. Again, he's one of those where the end product tends to let him down. He'll make a wrong decision with his final pass, or he'll take a shot when he probably shouldn't. I don't think any of us will ever forgive him for the penalty fiasco against Valencia, which cost us winning the group, which eventually meant we had to play Bayern Munich and get absolutely destroyed. But to be fair, everyone seems to get destroyed by Bayern Munich these days. RIP Barcelona. But he found a place for a little while after the restart. I think his physicality and his fitness kind of helped him be the man that Lampard said, okay, you're going to be starting for us after the restart. You've kept in good shape. During lockdown, he ran a 5K in like 15 minutes or something. Like, that's unhuman. That's just not a human though. Like, it's crazy. So I think Lampard thought, yeah, your fitness is good, so we will put you in there. And he delivered. He had some very good games for us, and it allowed Lampard to play that double eight, double number 8 in the midfield. So I think that's where Lampard's aiming to go. Do I think that Barkley's going to be one of them? No. With Havertz coming in, there's no comparison whatsoever. And I think even if we sold Barkley now, we only paid 15 million for him. Like, we could probably get that back, if not more. So I mean, I'm giving Barkley a C plus, because I think he was fairly average, but he did have those really good spells where he played well. So I think he's probably slightly above that. So I think for me, C plus.
On to probably another standout player for us this season, Mason Mount. There's been a lot of talk around him playing well for a number of seasons in our youth sort of squad. He's one of those that potentially can come through. I didn't think I was going to get a player like him to come through. He just was everywhere this season. Attacking, gave us so much. Could play on a wing, could play that number 8, and delivered in so many ways. A player of his age coming in with that level of maturity and hitting the ground running in the Premier League doesn't come along too often.
I think for me, the pivotal part about Mount's game is the press. He's the first man to start pressing, and that gets everyone behind him to join in. It's because he had that season under Lampard. He understands how Lampard wants to play, so everyone can see right when Mount starts pressing. That's when everyone else is like, okay, now it's for us to start pressing. He's the first one to do that, and I think it is so key for the way Lampard wants to play.
Mason Mount, obviously great player. So I'm going to give him an A. I'm going to give him an A this season. William, obviously absolutely gutted to see him in an Arsenal kit now. But for the season he's given us this year, he's been great. He has been Mr. sort of dependable. Following Hazard leaving, there was going to be a big gap. We've filled it with a number of young players, but William has just given us that edge this season. He's given us the goals that we needed, the assists we needed. He is moonlighting his career. I think he's got a number of years to give him, which does worry me now he's at Arsenal. But for me, had a great season for us. Offered a lot. And was that stopgap, gave Pulisic and a number of other players that breathing space to build into sort of becoming those great players, because they weren't expected to sort of hit the ground running. He was just sort of that player who could come in, offer what he offers, and gave the other players to sort of a chance to sort of build into sort of that form that he needed. For me, B plus all the way. He was outstanding for us. A few challenges of the way in which he plays his game, which I think was probably the last season we could have probably used him, but absolutely outstanding player. Sad to see him go. Gave us some great years in a Chelsea shirt.
I think he was a B plus until the second he put on the Arsenal shirt, so I think he should be pushed down to a B minus now.
Yeah, we're going to do a UK government and knock his grade down.
Exactly, yeah. It's because he's from a dodgy area, so just knock him down a
bit. Pedro, another player moonlighting their career.
Yeah, he was good this season, I think. In spells, he clearly lost his legs, which is a problem for him because he was a player that used his pace quite a lot to be dangerous, playing on the last shoulder, on the shoulder of the last man to get him behind. Not so easy when you get into that kind of age. The moment that springs to mind, in the FA Cup when we were 2-0 up against Liverpool, and he's through on goal. But he's got Gomez chasing and catching him, and he's not used to that. People usually don't catch him when he's through on goal. So I think it kind of put him off, and he ended up missing the chance. But that just kind of showed me he's coming to the end now, especially in the Chelsea shirt. And do you know what? I think he has been a good servant for us as well. Yeah. Not his most spectacular season this year. He didn't really contribute a hell of a lot. But he also wasn't used a hell of a lot either, so you couldn't really ask for more than what he gave. Solid C. C from me.
Hudson-Odoi. So there was the challenge at sort of the start of last season where he said he wasn't going to re-sign his contract. I think sort of seeing Lampard come in sort of warded off a lot of interest from external clubs looking to sort of sign some great talent. Has had moments of magic, but hasn't set the world on fire this season. I think it's another well-contested part of our team. You had Willian, who was a mainstay in our team just because he provided such quality. And then you've seen the likes of Pulisic come through. You've seen sort of some great talent come in, and he's sort of mellowed. I know that he had some challenges in sort of his home life at sort of around the Christmas time or sort of around the lockdown. I can't remember when it was, but that seems to have dented his confidence a little. Didn't sort of hit the ground running as much as he did last season. But once again, a solid performance, just nothing special. Moving on for the last of our sort of attacking midfielders, Christian Pulisic.
I remember for beginning of the season, and he comes on as a sub against United, and watching him, high hopes. We've lost Hazard, we've got a new winger. I know you don't want to put that kind of thing on him, but hopefully he's going to be at that level as quick as possible. And when he came on against United, just looking at him, I was thinking, oh God, he's so weak, physically weak. Like, he was getting bullied off the ball, and I was thinking, oh God, he is not ready. Misses a few games, comes back, does a little bit better, misses another couple of games, these injuries. And then he got to that Burnley game, and bang, 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 perfect hat trick. That's how to announce yourself in the Premier League. And again, it was just injuries kept setting him back. But every time he came back after that, he was just unstoppable. And then, I mean, he wouldn't have even come into the discussion for Player of the Year at all if the post-restart hadn't happened. And the way he played after the restart, he was absolutely incredible.
Pulisic, I think, if I was to sort of summarise the season, after the sort of performances he's put in, he's looked frightening. So I'm going to give him an A. Absolutely amazing for what he's delivered. Tammy Abraham, what were your thoughts?
Great start. Did very well at the beginning of the season. Unfortunately, he died off quite a bit towards the back end of the season. He did score a few goals after the restart, but Giroud getting chosen ahead of him, it kind of says it all. He still was our top goal scorer, so you can't really take that away from him. He just needs to work a little bit more on his hold-up play and kind of not panicking when he gets into that final third. Better than expected, not going to lie. He did better than I thought he was going to do, so I'm going for a B for Tammy.
The forgotten man, Michy Batshuayi. I mean, to be honest, I can't. There isn't much to comment on his performances because there weren't many of them. I think the fact that we're just calling him the forgotten man is probably the easiest thing to say there. Didn't offer much. Didn't deliver much.
One good goal. Actually, no, that's a lie. He did get 2 good goals. United in the Carabao Cup, which didn't really mean anything in the end because they beat us. But the Ajax goal away, that was big. So other than that, though, that was it, wasn't it?
He just needs a way out. In reference to giving him a score, I'm going to give him an E. There's not enough to go by, and there wasn't much to sort of offer up. I don't think he'll be here for much longer. He's had a number of years in Chelsea. He's just never delivered anything for us. Giroud, to your point, I think he's delivered a lot more in the second half of the season. He was the player we needed, not necessarily the player we wanted. He delivered exactly what he should have. I think I'm so glad we kept him. And I'm so glad we've signed him on for another season. And he offers just a different element to the game and did a job for us. Sort of, for us, we had an amazing season. I think by the time the lockdown happened, we would have been disappointed not to get Champions League. And I think down to him and a number of other players, we wouldn't have got Champions League if we hadn't sort of had him in the squad. His hold-up play, his ability to score, his ownership of the 45th plus 1 minute. He's sort of testament to his game, still competing at the top, even for his age. And I think sort of he will come on as a super sub. I just don't know how we're going to bring him on at the start of the first half, and then hopefully take him off again.
It's a shame we don't still have 5 subs to be used.
Yeah, but for me, had an outstanding sort of season for us. And once again, he was just one of those players that was just unexpected. Didn't expect him to come in. I think sort of even up until lockdown, I was expecting Tammy to come back and deliver the goals he'd been scoring. That didn't happen, and we would have been dead in the water if we didn't have Giroud. So I'm going to give him a B+.
One more person to give a rating to, which we didn't actually discuss.
We did.
Gaffer.
Not the Gaffer itself.
We haven't given him a grade. What do you think? What would you give?
I'm going to give him an A-. He had an outstanding season. I mean, everything was stacked against him. Couldn't sign players. He had to bring through youth. Had lost his best player. Number of sort of things stacked against him. Transfer ban. And for me to get Champions League football in your first season with all of those things stacked against you, and to actually change the ethos of the club, to bring through a number of young players, outstanding. Still had a few challenges. Lost his rag a few times, as expected.
Beautifully against Liverpool.
I mean, to be honest, I was losing
Love
it
that.
all.
Love that.
But he is Mr. Chelsea. He is delivering it, and he's building sort of a mature way of sort of transforming our club. I think is the best way of putting it.
So awards. Let's go on to awards. So we're going to give 4 awards out, which would be Player of the Season, Young Player of the Season, Most Improved, and Clubman. So Clubman will be, someone who's given their all for the team, someone that really kind of stands for what Chelsea believe in.
I'll do the drum roll. So where do you want to start?
Let's start with Clubman, and we'll work our way up. That's probably the best way. So the Clubman for this year is going to be, of course, Dave. Who else is it going to be? To be fair, I think Giroud would give him a run for his money, but Dave just epitomises what we want to see, and that is just that giving it 100%. He always has, and he always will. And to be honest, he probably would be our Clubman for every season he's played. He's been that solid for us.
No one else for me. No. I think Giroud had an outstanding season, but Dave just offers everything that I want from a Chelsea captain and a Chelsea player. Moving on to sort of most improved is Christian Pulisic. Absolutely outstanding. He's frightening as he goes forward. And he wasn't sort of a hit from the start. He built himself into this sort of thing, and we've seen a number of other players who have competed and earned their stripes. Another one, Reece James, absolutely outstanding, has improved as he's gone on this season. But I think Pulisic just hits everyone to the post there, just with how frightening he is and the value he offers one going forward. So going on to young player of the season.
So again, we've had quite a few academy players coming through. Even Pulisic is a young player, but I think for someone who really defined that new generation coming through, and someone that really is the face of this new Chelsea, has to be Mason Mount. As I said, he epitomises the way Lampard wants to play with that press, and he feels like almost a leader in midfield already, and he's so young, and he's got so much quality, and he really showed that this season. He played so many games, and for a young player to come in and play so much and do so well, I think what a first season he's had. You could have had an argument for many of these players, but I really think he's been the strongest of that youth that have come through, and I think he deserves to get the young player. Moving on
to the player of the season. Now, if you were to ask me this at the beginning of the season, I probably wouldn't have put this player's name in the hat whatsoever. I probably would have written it directly for Kante, just because I normally do. But once again, there were so many players who fit into that youth player of this season that could have won this. But for me, he's just played his heart out for the club. He's given us just something different, and sort of he's one of the three that we've given an A to on the sort of the scoring tonight. But Kovacic, I don't know whether you want to add any more words to sort of what you already sort of said to him, but he for me has been absolutely outstanding.
Yeah, I think he's looked the elite player in our team throughout the season. Obviously Pulisic probably is the one most fresh in our minds to look elite after the way he played after lockdown. But from the majority of the season, Kovacic has been pretty consistent in that strong performances. I can't imagine he'll be our player of the season next year. In all honesty, I'd be disappointed if he is our player of the season next year. But kudos to him for how he's kind of carried a lot of our play this year. And as I said earlier, carrying the ball through the midfield, beating the press, all very, very vital to the way we had to play this year, and very much a key part of how we managed to get that top 4 position.
So thanks again for tuning in to this week's Back to School with us giving the player ratings. Hopefully we've given it justice to the players this season. If you don't feel that, please feel free to comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell notification to keep going with Chelsea Chat with me, Moose and JB. We'll be back with some great content next week and hopefully a new addition to the team. Look forward to catching up with you guys on the flip side.